Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Line update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannifan. This is State of State. This podcast is presented by BetOnline, your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for college football, the NFL, plus baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, plus your favorite casino and card games available to play right on your phone. Head to betonline.ag or use your mobile device to join, and be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. State of State is presented by BetOnline, where the game starts. Also, State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out the latest Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. And if you're looking for the perfect beer for Penn State football season, we've got you covered with the State IPA. Special thanks to our friends at Funk Brewing for creating the perfect tailgate and game day beer for Nittany Lion fans. State IPA will be available at beer distributors, grocery stores, Funk's tap rooms, plus select bars and restaurants beginning tomorrow, Thursday, August 31st. Visit www.funkbrewing.com/beers/state-IPA to learn where and how you can get State IPA. Check out the link in the description of this podcast for more information. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly.
All right, welcome in, everybody. The State of State podcast. Your guest host here, Zach Kaplan, joined by Justin King after Penn State with a dominant win to go to 2-0 over the Delaware Blue Hens. Justin, how are we doing today?
Feeling good, man. I think it answered a lot of questions from last week, whether a little puttery on offense and coming out, but I feel like they really came out and established an identity, or at least that was a game plan coming in, whether it was Katron Allen getting most of the carries in the first series or first quarter for that matter, and then switching over to Nick Singleton. Obviously, efficiency by Drew Allers, very impressive, and just the way that they carried the game at the beginning, really like what we saw.
63-7, Penn State wins over Delaware, a game that they were in control of throughout much of it, favored by a lot of points coming in, and just kind of handling business, not playing with their food, as I like to say. Justin, I mean, how did you, kind of just speaking of the Lawn Boys and just the way that they were able to take advantage of this game right off the bat, what did you see with the way they were able to just put Delaware on their heels?
I mean, it seemed like they came out with a mission, especially Katron coming out at the beginning and just established a run, again, 5 yards a clip. I think he has a very unique ability of making the first guy miss, whether it's from quick feet or just running through tackles. I really enjoy watching his running style. It reminds me of that Frank Gore in San Francisco, that Frank Gore in the NFL, right? Where he's like a real creasy type of runner where it's very efficient, very wasted movements. Obviously, Nick Singleton had 3 touchdowns in the first half, so we can't really discount the production there. But that's what we talk about with the Lawn Boys, just having that group of backs where you can be productive and efficient running the football. I mean, very few carries, very few running plays where it was negative yards from the play. That's something that always grinds my gears. So just the way that they always are getting positive 4 or 5 yards a clip, and especially when Katron and Nick, they deliver blows at the end of those runs. And when you come out and establishing a run like that, I think we started to see just opening up for the quarterback. 22 for 26 from Drew, 204 yards, 8 yards a clip, touchdown. I mean, that's efficiency, and still scoring 63 points. Again, last week I was on the offense a little bit about just a lack of identity and just how it felt better, even though the stats came out. I think today they came out like, we're going to run the football, we're going to pass the ball like this. And I really felt that watching the game, okay, they're coming out to make a statement that we're bigger, stronger, faster than you guys, and this is how we're going to do it. Hand it off to our running backs, and then pick your poison with Drew. I mean, he hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I mean, he spread the
I
ball
like you
around
just
from the
kept
running
hitting them.
backs all over the place, so loved it.
All right, let's go. I just want to go over a couple stats just to kind of back up what you're saying. It is Katron who leads the team, gets over the century mark with 103 yards on 19 carries today. It's 5.4 carry for a touchdown. Singleton with most of the rushing tutties, 12 carries, 47 yards for about 4 yards a carry, and the 3 touchdowns. And then we had a couple of quarterbacks. Obviously, Drew Aller, Bo Pribola. We had a couple of guys. They really went pretty deep into the depth chart, which is nice in a blowout like this. And you kind of said it with the offense. It felt like last week there was like some jitters. Like they got off to the hot start. I was fired up. I was watching over at my studio. I work at a TV station out here in Montana, and everyone thought something was wrong with me. I said, no, you don't understand. This team can be special. But then it felt like it's like they got the nerves out of the way last week, but then they kind of stalled in the middle. And today I just felt like they came out, handled business right away, and did not waste any time.
100%. I lean on that identity piece from just whether from a personnel standpoint or even playing on defense, just knowing what you're going to go up against on the offense. And when they commit to that, they do it well. And run the football is a core piece of what Penn State, I think, should be doing moving forward, even with a dynamic quarterback like Drew Aller coming into the fold. I mean, I was impressed by how they came out and dominated the competition from just a physicality standpoint. Spreading the ball around. And again, the way that Katron and the way that Nick run the football are just inspiring to me.
Yeah, so Penn State on the day, as a team, they ran 60 carries for 315 yards. It's about 5 yards a pop, 6 touchdowns on the ground. And it's interesting because I'm out here in Montana, and Montana actually runs a 3-3-5 defense. The university does at the FCS level. And part of the issue with the 3-3-5 is when you're not gap sound, you can get totally just blown apart on the edges like that. And I felt like that was, watching Delaware today, it felt a little bit like when I watch Montana and they go against some of these teams that can run the ball really well. And they just absolutely shred you on the edges.
No, absolutely. And again, like you said, there's different creases, there's bubbles that automatically, or they're just based on alignment. And when you don't have special players, especially when I think there's a personnel discrepancy, it shows up. And I think Penn State knew that coming in, and I like how they just attacked it and really didn't get too cute with anything and run the football, maybe a nice little couple screens to the tight ends in the middle of the field. But I feel like it was just straight up some good football being played.
So a couple other notes I had. I love the way they immediately come out, Mike Yursich. They came out in a 5 wide receiver set, first play on offense. I just love that. They immediately were like, we're not going to mess around, take care of business. Get our quarterbacks in, get our backups in. I just love that this team's not afraid to go empty right off the bat in the game.
I mean, but you look at how they spread the football around, man, from Keandre Lambert, Tyler Warren, Dante Cephas, Harrison Wallace. You got Nick Singleton, Theo, like Christian Driver, all these guys, Malik McClain. I mean, he had a great week last week and had 1 catch this week. Amari Evans, like the list of receivers and guys that can be capable of producing is deep. And the fact that it seems like Drew Aller doesn't have a favorite target yet, right? Whether outside of Keandre, it's pick your poison. And I think when you establish that run game in such a intentional way, I think it sets the tone, because playing against defenses, like there's a physicality component that comes into it. Whether you play gap sound, you're in the right place, you still have to make the tackle. You still have to take on those blows when like someone like Katron is like delivering them at the end or taking on blocks. Like, so there's a physicality that comes with running the football in an efficient way that really, from like a defensive person's standpoint, you don't like when teams commit to that, because then it opens it up for different things where you could pass the ball. Right. I mean, you got to still be able to run around, but if you got a Charlie horse from getting kneed in your leg from the 10 run plays, it's a little bit harder to cover the receiver. Or you're just thinking about seeing the offensive lineman come off the ball. You're just make them read their keys and play sound defense. And I think they did that, establishing the run early.
A couple other notes I had. Those first 2 offensive drives, not to harp too much on the offense, we will talk defense as well.
Sure.
Because they really only had the 1 play, and otherwise they were pretty nice. But I just felt like, that first drive, like they get the holding call, and then they're backed up. And then the second drive, they had another, I feel like in past years, they would have settled for field goals on those drives. And it's not a knock on those teams. Like, they had talent too. But, like, when people ask me like why, like when I have Ohio State and Michigan fans in my life being like, why do you think they're different? I just think the drives, like those first 2 scoring drives of the game, when you have holding penalties, when you had a bad snap, I think it was a bad snap or something. I have to go back and check, but like those are field goal drives in the past. And this team, like they go up 14-0 instead of 6. They kind of put the game away after Delaware had the 1 long touchdown run, and that's why I feel like they can be different. It just feels like they have that other gear where they're unfazed by penalties and mistakes that can end drives sometimes.
Yeah, I think I think that's very accurate. It's just the way that they come out and presented their offensive game plan and different things of that nature, and even on defense, like started off a little shaky with some leaky runs, and obviously the long pass, but the long run from the I forget the guy's name.
Yarns,
I think Yarns. Yeah, Yarns. He had a 66-yard run.
Good football name.
Yeah, very great football name. But you're right. When you get down to the red zone, from a defensive perspective, we want to hold you to 3 points. So if you can like march up and down the field all the yards that you want, if you're not putting in the end zone, it doesn't matter. And that's a critical factor to just winning the games. Obviously, the turnover battle dictates that a lot. But it's red zone scoring as well for the offense. That's like one of the critical points that you need to take care of. And whether it was 2017, 18, those different teams that had a lot of talent, some of the criticisms that used to come into play were third down conversions and scored in the red zone, right? And I do believe that comes from like a toughness and a mentality, whether it's even on defense, right? I don't believe tackling is a skill. Tackling is a mentality, right? So it's like you want to get somebody to the ground, and it's the same thing when you're running the football. It's a mentality, and it's a mentality setter for the whole football team, I believe. So that capping off touchdowns with a physical mentality, running the football and then capping it off with touchdowns. Yes, that's what you see from elite football teams that have typically played at the end of the year in the college football playoffs.
All right, you're a defensive guy, and you mentioned kind of finishing drives. The T formation. I mean, just how frustrating do you imagine it would be to be, on your heels? They come out in the T, and they can just slice you to death in that. How frustrating is that for the defender?
Shout out to Matty Fresh with the T formation, the song, and all that.
He loves it, man.
Loves it. He was on point. Made the song about it, but like everyone's not running T formation because now it's the day of the spread wide, or not the empty offenses, or high flying offenses throwing the ball around. So just getting back to that old style of football where you have 2 running backs and a dynamic, maybe tight end or whoever you want to move into the backfield to do that. Again, I don't want to harp on the identity piece, but that's a toughness formation, right? You see that from the old Green Bay Packers. It's a throwback situation to like, oh, we're not here to play around. So like, playing on defense as a corner, I wouldn't want to see it because typically they're cracking down and making the corners tackle and do all those different things. So I love to see it from our team and going against different offenses, and I think it sets the tone, especially for the defense, and they're practicing against that and practice against the offense to shore up that run defense moving forward in the Big Ten play.
Yeah, I just kind of love it. I was joking with a buddy during the game that when teams start figuring out how to defend the T, they should just start running that Philadelphia Eagles like rugby scrum play on short yardage. I mean, I feel like they have so many options with this group as far as short yardage and picking up 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2.
It definitely reminds me of like those not the old days, but I'm going to age myself a little bit, but the 49er teams, when we used to play them, I played at NFL and NFC West, and they had like Frank Gore, Vernon Davis at tight end, and they had big running backs to the offensive line, Joe Staley, all those guys, and Jim Harbaugh, Michigan head coach, was the head coach there. And when we tell you they came out with the mentality of like, we're going to run the ball and we're going to hit seams and different things of that nature, I mean, it makes you buck up and play football. So like, I love the fact that they're taking that approach and running straight at people, especially from that T formation. It just brings a lot of dynamics that a lot of teams do not practice for anymore, right? Whether it's limited tackling in practice, whether it's, the health and safety and all those different things. But at the end of the day, it's a gladiator sport. And to put that in the forefront of your arsenal, I love it.
I got to bring it up as a Penn State fan. The winged helmets. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it just created like a little hatred with Penn State, even though they knew it's not Michigan. But I just hated looking at them all game. Those winged helmets just bugged me. I don't know how you felt about those.
I
know it's still Delaware wears, but
See, growing up in Pittsburgh, it's funny because like the winged helmets. I mean, the school here, Willen Hills High School, where Miles Sanders won a lot of good players, Rob Gronkowski, Steve Reston, Matt Mundy. I think they have the most NFL guys from the high school. So growing up, they used to have some sweet helmets. Their colors were blue and black, or a teal and black. So like I grew up, I was like, oh, thinking that was a sweet thing. But obviously, you get to Penn State, you see Michigan, and all those different things. It kind of starts to shift away. So I wasn't real fond of the blue, and it's like it's that old pit. It's that old pit blue and bright mustard yellow. Like that's garbage. So yeah, I feel the same way.
I had that top of my notes, just like first drive. I'm like, winged helmets. I'm like, man, how are we gonna feel about these in the middle of November? Gross.
Right.
So I made a note about that. The one thing, obviously, in a game like this, you don't want injuries. It didn't seem like they had too many. I did know Lambert-Smith went down at one point in the first quarter there. He did return in the second quarter, so looked like some sort of ankle issue, but I think he was okay. Was there any other injuries, anything you noticed as far as like, because you never want 63-7. I mean, just get guys in. I don't think you saw too many injuries, which is the most important thing.
No, you never want to see that. But the one thing that you do see, man, now that you bring up Keandre, I think it happened last week as well, that something happened with his ankle because he kept coming back in with his ankles being spatted. His ankles spatted. So like I noticed that he started the game not having his ankles spatted, and then throughout the game it ended up getting taped. So I don't know if he has like a lingering ankle issue going on or something of that nature, but that is something to look out for. I think I was more concerned with, obviously you have to get the reps and different snap counts in for Drew, whether we're going to use QB draw and different things like that nature. But every time he took a hit, I was like, don't get hurt. Because I'm very impressed by him. So like just seeing quarterbacks, and he's a big guy too, and he moves much better than I think I was going to give him credit for coming into the season. So not really seeing any injuries, but I held my breath every time that he took a hit.
Especially when he's like out scrambling, like in the open field. I'm like, be careful. I'm like, save that.
Right.
Oh man. But luckily it looked like he was good. But Pribula obviously came in. And I gotta say, I admire the little song and dance that James Franklin has to play, and really played it throughout all of fall camp, and has been doing it. And I imagine we'll try to do it in some of these blowout games where you have three quarterbacks that you like: Jackson Smolik, Pribula, and Drew Aller. And I'm just wondering, like, from your perspective in this transfer portal era, like, how hard is it to make all three of them happy, make it in a way where even if they're not the starter, you don't have to worry about those guys going in the portal now?
Well, I always say that. No, it's extreme. It's a challenge. The major challenge is the talent management piece, right? Just trying to keep your backup quarterbacks or your third string quarterbacks ready to go, right? Where they're not looking at being disgruntled or becoming a cancer on the team. I think that's the tough part. But from my experience, even when I worked at Penn State from 17 to 19 in the recruiting department, we always had some level of packages, whether it was Tommy Stevens, it was working in Clifford, it had Will Levis, who was a second round draft pick, like always trying to rotate different players in. And I think James has a unique ability of building depth and getting guys into the game. Sometimes I used to question, I'm like, he would rotate corners and rotate linebackers and positions that typically don't rotate too much. And I mean, again, we had dynamic quarterbacks and you had to figure out a way to get snap counts. I'm a firm believer. I mean, just about stats, or you can look at analytical data over historical time, that snap counts lead to performance on the field, right? You can't get your reads down. You can't build up like timing and different things of that in that vein as a quarterback without getting snap counts. Essentially, that's where, I don't know if a lot of people know, but like a lot of these spring leagues, that's what they run, that they raise money on. That's the selling point of it, is to drive the quarterback play, because it's so hard to find developed quarterbacks. And that's in the NFL, that's in college. And you see it all the way down to the high school ranks with the emergence of the quarterback coach being such a critical piece in the skill-based development of that position. So, I mean, it's hard to find them. And so when you do have two that are good, you have to take care of it in a unique situation. And I think he being James Franklin has a unique history of managing that well.
Penn State fans, Smack Apparel has the best gear for talking smack on game day. Head to smackapparel.com today and be ready for week 1 with the Save a Couch Beat WVU shirt. Also, check out their Let There Be White tee for the whiteout game against Iowa at Beaver Stadium. There's also the Drink Up, Roar On tee, as well as the Saturdays We Are design. If you're watching this on YouTube, scan the QR code on the screen to take you to the website instantly on your phone. Visit smackapparel.com and use our promo code STATE10 at checkout for 10% off your order. That's STATE10. Again, that's smackapparel.com, promo code STATE10 at checkout. Why wear boring when you can wear Smack? Are you looking for undeniably good hair and beard care? Then Maestro's Classic is perfect for you. Maestro's has beard washes, beard oils, beard butters, plus hair gels, pomades, and now body washes. It's one brand for every man. Visit maestrosclassic.com, that's MAESTROS classic.com, and use our promo code STATE20, that's STATE20 at checkout for 20% off your order. Maestro's Classic, crafting a better you.
We talked a little bit about we're talking about the quarterbacks, obviously, and I mentioned earlier kind of things that, in my mind, granted 2 games into the season, but separate this 2023 group from the recent successful teams of the past. We talked about how they kind of like recover from penalties. They hold on the first drive. Like the teams that would have kicked field goals, they're putting in touchdowns. And the other thing I think that separates this group, specific to Drew Aller, his pocket presence is unbelievable. I'm so amazed by it. There was especially that first touchdown throw we had in the West Virginia game, and then it continued today against a decent FCS front in a 3-3-5 that's designed to bring pressure and designed to make you just your head spin as a quarterback. I can't believe, and as a defensive guy, I'm wondering your perspective on this, like the way he can just have that presence, step up calmly in the pocket, poised, he doesn't look rattled. Like, how impressive is that to you from a guy of his experience level?
I think I tweeted out at halftime, man, like Drew is cold, like with the emoji with the cold face, because he really is. And those are the type of movements in the pocket that give you headaches, right? I remember the first time I played against Aaron Rodgers, his first starting year after Brett Favre left. And that was like the main thing where for a time in my life, people would ask me, like, who was the best receiver that you played against in the NFL? I was like, whoever Aaron Rodgers was throwing to, because you had to cover them so long, and the ability to put the ball in the breadbasket wherever it is. We talk about the first drive against West Virginia. Like, I think that one play, the play action pass where he stepped up and hit Keandre on the TRC route, like that's an elite type of pass that I don't know if many quarterbacks can make, from escapability in the pocket, stepping up and delivering a strike. And even when we talk about the play today where he hit Dante Cephas on a crossing route, he was trapped in the pocket, got some escapability, kept his eyes downfield, turned his hips, and throw a dart. I mean, I'm growing up in Pittsburgh, so that looks reminiscent to the days of Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, like how he pretty much built up his whole career. So when I see that with someone that's a little bit more mobility, I'm a fan of Drew. I don't like to crown players too early, because it's like puts a little pressure on them. But like, I like those things, and as a defense, I like them because from a defensive standpoint, I would hate playing against it.
And I think he's earned it. I mean, you look at his stats today: 22 of 26 through the air for 204 yards and a tutty, no picks. Adds another 27 yards on the ground on 5 carries and another touchdown. I mean, that was like, I mean, they probably didn't throw him like totally out there for obvious reasons. And obviously they pull him at, I think I added the 9:41 mark of the third quarter is when he came out and Pribola came in. So like, I mean, he did that in, 2.5 quarters. It's just so impressive to me, the way he's just like taken over the starting role and like totally put his own spin on it. And yeah, I think he's a special player.
100%. And I like talking about the promise of players or just the results that we see. But I mean, for myself, I feel like I've seen Drew putting in work for a long time with his quarterback coach, Brad Mandler, with the QBX out in Ohio. I think Gronk, the quarterback coming into Penn State next year, also trains with him. But we talk about that development early, whether it's the 707 in high school. Some people have a negative connotation to it, but I think the benefactors of just that whole ecosystem are quarterbacks. The specialty, I mean, you got Daryl Clark having a flight QB 17 in Ohio as well. So just these different elite quarterback coaches getting players ready in high school. You start to see the outcomes when they step onto the field and being able to make plays like this, reading the defense a certain type of way, ball placement, moving on the run, turning their hips and throwing and different things like that. Another one is Quincy Avery down in Atlanta. But just these quarterback, I mean, I don't want to say gurus, but like development coaches that are getting guys ready for the totality of the game, right? Because I think just left to just your quarterback coach, I think there's a limited ability of development. They actually have a time limit in which they can spend with guys in college. And now that guys have their own coaches and trainers and continue to get better in development, the guys that really lean into that, we see them making those steps. I mean, I'm not going through the list of quarterbacks that I've seen going through high school, but Drew is one of those guys where it was very evident that he was putting in the work. I went to the weight room, I think, one time this summer, and just check. I mean, I was just looking at the team. I like to see how people work out and going things. And he has like a Terminator type of demeanor, right? Like you talk about a skill-based thing, whether it's like a Tiger Woods that plays golf or a kicker or just certain things where they just get very detailed in like the rhythm or just getting repetitions. And nothing that I see from him in the weight room, from like I've seen quarterbacks lift in the weight room. Some of them don't always take it serious in how they manipulate that time. And I just remember seeing Drew, like he was like a part of the guys, but then he would also do things with his center, taking snaps, getting throws off, but always just that muscle memory of throwing the football and it's going through his different progressions, even in the weight room setting. So like me seeing him, I always like to lean on the journey and the process of players, where they come from. And when we see him, instead of just saying like, hey, he's just super talented, right? Because like he is super talented. The one thing that just impresses me with him is that I've seen the work that he's put in from afar, and I love to see it pay off.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And the way that, I mean, and he's been hyped. I'm amazed by the poise. And it's in game, but it's also like the way he's been heralded as this quarterback prospect for a long time, from really the minute that he committed to Penn State, over the Buckeyes, over some of the other places he could have gone. And he just like takes it all in stride. Like he acts so much older than he is. I'm amazed by it.
I think that's what I think I'm trying to point out, is that I think that poise comes from the work that you put in. And it's just, I mean, those repetitions build confidence. And that's what I try to get younger football players to understand, is like, put yourself in these different situations to build that confidence. So when you step on the field, that you're playing at a certain level. And I think we've seen that with him in these first two games, and just him being prepared. And another thing, just to talk about, he wasn't always the highly touted quarterback coming out, right? He was kind of underrated. He was like a 3-star. And then he kind of blew up I was actually at the not the Laguna Beach, but we were at Manhattan Beach, a school around there. He was at the Elite 11, and he won like the competition against these other quarterbacks, and he kind of rose up the boards. So like when you're coming from that, like he has like the makeup of somewhat an underdog, and then people came on late. So I think that even that 5-star status wasn't necessarily like a 5-star quarterback that we deemed in ninth grade, like a Spencer Rattler, right? He was touted to be whatever, and it's just a different makeup depending on how that journey goes. So him having that kind of 3-star chip on his shoulder, working, and then he gets acknowledged. I don't think he really had the mentality of a 5-star quarterback when he came out. He still had the mentality of a 3-star quarterback with 5-star tools, and I think that's a unique situation. And again, I'm pointing out that he puts in the work to see the results that we're seeing in these first couple games.
We got to talk a little defense here. I know you had to be happy for Dominic DeLuca. He had that first pick. It's like in his hands. I'm sure it was killing him the whole time. And then I don't know. Sometimes, it's not often you get that second chance, but he sure made it pay and helped put that game away in the third quarter. How exciting is that as a defensive guy, a former walk-on or run-on, as James Franklin calls him, to get that pick six and make up for that pick right in his hands that he
it's definitely cool to see. I mean, I'm just out of just being selfish. I would love to see a DB have a pick six, but the linebackers will get some love, that
True.
Zero. And I love to see, I mean, like you said, a run on, you come on, you earn your stripes or earn that number 0 to get into the field and make a play. I mean, pick six interceptions are momentum changers. And so I love to see that. I like to see some more turnovers being created. I know there was a fumble a little earlier But that's the one area on the defense that I would like to see is just a little bit more turns. But I mean, when those opportunities come, got to take advantage of them, and he was the first one to take advantage. So kudos, Dom.
63-7, Penn State beats the Delaware Blue Hens to improve to 2-0. Justin King and Zach Kaplan talking about it post game after the Nittany Lions with a nice win, dominant. And they do look ahead next week to Illinois, which we'll talk about a little bit. Big noon kickoff, the bane of my existence. Just come on, man. Just some of these games. They better move that Michigan game. I was texting about it with a couple of friends. I know they won't, but God, it kills me seeing that 10 a.m. Mountain Time start for me out west, and
we'll see what the numbers look like for that Colorado-Nebraska game. I think that'll be a determining factor if they move it or not. But I think it did pretty well, and it's just going to get to the evidence of like, hey, let's put the games at noon and keep it rolling if we get the right matchups. Because the Michigan game is one that I plan on going to, and I'm like, it's I actually like attending noon games, but for sure,
you do.
Yeah, because they're done, right? I like planning them and I like attending them because you get a chance to spend time with family afterwards. It's 3:30. You can go to dinner. They can come over and all. And when you're playing, when you go to game, you can get a nice dinner and chill with family afterwards. You can see the coaches. Night games 4:00. It gets kind of sticky with official visits or people in town. Yeah. It's just a lot of it's just a little different. But it's harder on the player to get up and get ready for it. So you hear from the fans they have nights out the day before. You gotta get some Gatorade and Pedialyte in them to enjoy the game.
Oh man, a couple other things I wanted to bring up with this game today. I mean, the only negative was that 66-yard touchdown Delaware had at the end of the first quarter there.
Cussing up my screen, man.
It was the backup linebackers, like you mentioned, Franklin kind of rotating guys in. But what did you see on that play? Why were you cussing at your screen?
Well, backup linebackers is one thing. The standard is standard, right? I think when you're playing any type of defense, there's a level of gap responsibility and scraping on linebackers. And so when you don't do the basic things or fundamentals, that's why I typically don't coach, because I have very little patience for the fundamentals lacking in football, especially from the front, like the front seven. On defense. So I think we just saw a situation where people were out of place in the way that he gapped that screen. I mean, he was untouched for 66 yards, and that's unacceptable. I think regardless if it's the first string or a whole team walk-ons, if you're playing at Penn State, you should have some gap control, and someone should impede a run and play like that before he runs off. But they got to correct it after that. I don't think there was any more running issues, but that's just something that needs to get corrected.
And then the nice thing, they absolutely did, because that second quarter they come out, 3 touchdown drives. And the one that really impressed me was the one right before the half that I wanted to bring up as well. They go 52 yards in 49 seconds on 6 plays, and it ends with a Tyler Warren 2-yard touchdown catch from Drew Aller. I mean, and at that point, he kind of felt like the game was over. 28-7, 21-7. Weird stuff can still happen to make it a game. But, when they come down, and when they can strike that quickly, it just makes it so demoralizing if you're, whether you're Delaware, Sisters of the Poor, or an Ohio State team. I mean, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I just going back to recruiting style, like I put a premium on one-touch guys, but guys that have the ability to make big plays, because it changes your mentality on defense, regardless if you're a receiver that has 1 catch for 60 yards and a touchdown versus 7 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. Give me that 7 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown, because as a defensive player, I'm playing with complete confidence, and I'm not really losing confidence off of anything that happens, even though the results are the same. When you have that 1 for 60, and you know that there's an ability for a running back to split a seam and take it 70 or strike out for a touchdown, there's a little apprehension. Sometimes you're on your heels just from that standpoint, and that kind of opens up the playbook and ability to do different things, and just puts the defense in a little bit more shaky position. So when they can score fast and early, not have to put together 12 play drives and march all the way down the field, that's my type of football.
And then like third quarter, I mean, they come out and kind of do the same thing. We talked about Bo Pribula coming in middle of that third quarter. I'm curious what you think about the Trace McSorley comparisons, because he wears 9. He kind of looks like him body-wise. He runs into the end zone like him. What do you make when people kind of put that out there?
That's lazy. It's lazy because it's number 9. He reminds me more of Tommy Stevens, to be completely honest. The transfer that left and went down to Mississippi State because Tommy was big, athletic, he can run. He was twitchy, and I think Bo has more of those qualities with a little bit, I guess, heightened arm talent. And so with that, it's pretty scary because I thought Tommy was an extremely incredible athlete at Penn State. So I think the trace comparisons are lazy, but I think he's more like Tommy Stevens.
I like it. Yeah, certainly the style of play where he's just they have the package for him, and he's a big dude, just hard to bring down. That's
what I mean. Tommy Stevens was a big guy. Trace necessarily wasn't big, maybe 5'11", 200 pounds. I'm not to shorten you up, Trace. 6 foot.
No, but he had heart, but he wasn't 6'5". Yeah. There's nothing wrong with one of that.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of cool to see him like come in though and kind of put his own some print on the game. And I am curious though. I mean, do you expect that package, some sort of package for him, will continue to be a part of the offense going into conference play now?
Absolutely. I mean, that gives us the defensive coordinator something to plan, have to put in a whole period and take away from practice to make sure that it's taken care of. And it's just another thing to prepare for. I mean, I think you build up your arsenal on it. And these first 2 games, Penn State has shown that their offensive bag can be pretty deep. Scoring 63 points this week, 35 or 38 last week? And
controversially 38.
Controversially 38, right? But still, in both games, I don't feel like all the weapons were completely used at the same time. Like there's never a reliance on one thing or the other. Like, hey, how do you want to do it? We can run this football and we can dink and dunk all the way down. We have a quarterback that can make the big throws that, very few quarterbacks can make on the field. And there's talent, right? There's just talent all over the place. And the fact I really liked how they called the game today. I'm a big, I say it all the time, I'm an identity guy when it comes to offense and how to judge offensive coordinators and how they call the game, whether it's the charisma from the play calling or the moxie that they have. And I like what Penn State has. I feel like their arsenal is deep. And as long as the play calling matches up and has a nice rhythmic flow to it, I think they can do some damage.
Yeah, we'll certainly see what they have dialed up as they get ready. I think we could talk about it now. For the Illinois Fighting Illini on Big Noon next week in Champaign. This is an Illinois team that they won by 2 over Toledo. They barely avoided getting upset by them. And then last night, on Friday night, if you're listening to this later in the week, they went to Lawrence, Kansas, and lost by 11 to a Kansas Jayhawks team that's on the rise, but it's certainly been one of the worst FBS teams record-wise over the past 10 years. And, it's not an impressive Illinois team, especially compared to some of the ones they've had in the last few years. But and losing to Kansas last night, is it a little bit of a trap game? Is that kind of a stupid, overused term to say? Like, with the whiteout ahead, like, how do you kind of feel about going into next week now?
I believe trap games do not exist for elite teams. Or at least they shouldn't, right? Because every week we should be talking about getting better at what you're doing. And every time that you step on the field is an opportunity to dominate your opponent. And I'm a firm believer of treat your opponent the way they should be treated. So if they're losing to Kansas, there's no need to worry about a trap game. It should be, can I make them quit by the second quarter? Like, that's the mentality. And when you have that mentality going into different games as a complete unit, forget a trap game. I don't know what I don't know what that is. Trap games are for, guys that play down to their competition. I don't think this team is expected to play down to their competition. And we haven't hit, again, on full cylinders all across the board. They gave up a 66-yard run today, so they better go into the week figuring out how to make sure that doesn't happen again. Getting other guys involved on defense, making some turnovers. Like, there's still areas that they can build on. So, yeah, I don't like that trap game crap.
I like the way you're looking at it. I just you watch this team today, and you think about, every Penn State fan knows how it went the last time they played Illinois, and I just know that this team in short yardage will not be fooled, and I'm thankful for that, because if I ever have to watch Penn State football struggle in short yardage the way they did in that infamous 9 overtime game, I might blow my head through a glass window or something.
It's a mentality and identity when it comes to short yardage and tackling, man. Like, who are you and where do you build around? I think before there's been a mentality or identity issue, whether it was different offensive coordinators. I know Jomo had a nice passing offense. So he had a horizontal type of attack. So he leaned on that, right? So 3rd and 3, I mean, he's going to where he feels comfortable, and that's throwing the ball. I mean, same thing with some of the previous offensive coordinators. But when you have 2 dynamic running backs, man, that's why I'm a big fan of both Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Nick Singleton gets a lot of national praise, but Katron's running style is something that I really enjoy because he has like a quick feet, quick nature, like from a 0 to 5 runner. He's shifty, has nice balance, and he delivers blows at the end. Obviously, I mean, again, Nick Singleton's great as well. He can split holes 70 yards, do all that stuff. He runs like a
unique skill set.
Unique skill set, right? Yeah. And sometimes it gets undertaken of his skill set is that short yardage type of thing. Because I'm not sure. I mean, I would like to look at the stats to see how many broken tackles are created by those 2, but I feel like the first defender never takes them down. So whether you're, again, playing sound defense and different things in that realm, I mean, his touchdown on the first one, I mean, he ran through, the guy was there on the 2-yard line. Now, what are you going to do? Like, go run through him, right? So, like, having those different type of abilities and leaning into those abilities, right? Not because, I mean, we could have did that with Miles Sanders when he was here or Saquon, but it was a different game plan and attack mode. So that short yardage, being able to convert on 3rd down, being able to stop guys on 3rd down is extremely important. Football comes down to those critical moments and critical plays across the field. I mean, you can make impactful, unimportant. No, I can't say. You can make important play or nice plays that are not impactful. And I am a firm believer of playing your best at the critical moments. And that's those 3rd down conversions, 3rd down stops, red zone conversions, red zone stops, and creating turnovers and not turning the ball over. So making sure that those things are lined up throughout the whole football game, making sure the percentages of wins are where you want them. I think you're cooking with some good stuff.
All right, we got a few more minutes here. Obviously, Penn State with a 63-7 win over Delaware, 2-0 now, going to Illinois next week. For what is not a trap game, says Justin King, which I like. And I like to think they're going to get asked about the 9 overtime game enough this week that's going to piss them off to the point where, they're going to be like, hey, you know what? To heck with the thing. Like, half of us weren't even here. Like we're going to take care of our business. I want to ask you, though, Justin, like, I think most Penn State fans would have expected if you said, all right, you're going to beat West Virginia by 23, you're going to beat Delaware going away. This is about where people expected them to be at 2-0, but I almost feel like they look better than I expected them to be. And you look ahead at the upcoming schedule, which we're allowed to do. The players shouldn't, but, us as people who watch and cover the team can, with Illinois on the road and then Iowa at home, a Northwestern team that's, scandal ridden, and then UMass. I mean, there really isn't an excuse to not be undefeated going to Columbus at the end of October. I guess, like, have your expectations for this team changed at all? Has your excitement for the potential of this team changed from where you were before the West Virginia game?
No, I think I'm on record of having pretty high expectations for this team, just from a talent standpoint, from understanding the coaching staff and how they're built, the culture that's been built at Penn State to this point. They're performing where I thought they would, and I like the fact that, how can I say this? I like the fact that they're winning by such a great margin, but there's so many things to still work on, and I don't feel like the tank is full yet, or like they're dialing up or hitting on all cylinders across the board. So what that is encouraging to me. So just in terms of peaking as a team, playing together, there's different parts moving in. Like I said, like Dante Cephas coming in. You got Trace McSorley. You got Drew Aller coming in. I mean, like someone like a Day Hardy hasn't played yet. There's just a lot of pieces that are still missing, but they're still operating and winning by large margins. And again, those are the fundamentals of a championship December, January type of team.
Yeah, and I guess as we kind of jump into our final thoughts here, I think I just completely agree. In the sense that they just, they're not playing with their food in some of these games. Like, that 2018 game, and that was a good Appalachian State team that came in the opener. Opening games are always weird anyway, but that team, like, it took a lot to put them away, and they've struggled sometimes in games that they shouldn't have, and just to see them come out of the gate, really dominate in these first 2 games, and have 4 very winnable but like good tune-ups as you kind of get ready for those games against the Buckeyes and Michigan, and even a road trip to Maryland coming up at the end of October and beginning of November. I feel like they're in a good spot to continue building, and really should be 6-0 heading to Columbus late October.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a nice juggernaut type of match, heavyweight battle that we're looking forward to. And yeah, there is no excuse for them to lose any games prior to that. But I think the buildup and the expectation of the season is to obviously beat Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, all these teams, and play in the college football place. So like with that being, I mean, and winning the Big Ten, obviously. So with that being, I'm sure, a goal and based off of just potential personnel, just the match points of the team. I mean, you have to have you have to start ticking different as a program and how you're moving, right? Like Saban always talks about the rat poison, whether it's good or bad. And like, as they're getting praised, they should take that praise and put it into the confidence bag, and not the confidence bag of laying off the gas, but the confidence bag of pressing the gas, right? It's just making sure that we fill out all the different areas of an elite football team.
All right, this has been the State of State podcast, recapping Penn State's 63-7 win over the Delaware Blue Hens. For Justin King, I'm Zach Kaplan, and we'll check in with you coming up this week as the Nittany Lions get ready to go to Champaign and take on Illinois. Justin, thanks again.
Thank you. 1-0 always.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, let us know what you think of the show on Twitter @TheKing1 and @Tom Hannifan. State of State is presented by Bet Online.